NATO policy, a return to deterrence? In the interview, NATO Secretary-General Anders Fogh Rasmussen.
Mr. Rasmussen, your 5-year term at the helm of NATO ends in a couple of weeks' time. If you strike your personal balance, mission accomplished?
At least I'm watching developments in Europe putting more focus on NATO and making it obvious to everybody that we need a very strong NATO to provide effective defensive protection of our allies. So compared to 5 years ago, I think we see today a much stronger, fitter, faster NATO.
When you hand over business as NATO Secretary General to your successor, what will you tell him? What is currently the biggest challenge for NATO?
The biggest challenge will be to reinforce our collective defense, because we are faced with a dramatically new security situation in Europe. Russia's illegal military actions in Ukraine are a wake-up call and a reminder that we cannot take our security for granted. So the biggest challenge right now is to keep our line strong, to reinforce our collective defense, and that will also take more investment in our security.
I would like to talk a bit more about this security crisis in Europe. 5 years ago, your key goal was to restore the ties to Russia, the former enemy, to re-engage Russia. This was your slogan. What went wrong?
Yeah, still I think it was the right thing to do. Actually, not only during the last 5 years, but for more than 20 years, we have tried to engage Russia in a constructive cooperation. And deep from my heart, I still believe that the right thing is an engagement with Russia. And basically, I think we share interests in many areas. But I have to realize that the Russian thinking is different. And though we decided back in 2010 to develop a true strategic partnership between NATO and Russia, Russia doesn't behave as a partner, and we can see from Russian military document that the Russians consider NATO an adversary. And of course we have to adapt to that. But still, I think it was the right thing to do, to try to engage Russia, but we have to realize that Russia sees it differently, and we will adapt to that.
Adapting to that new situation, which words would you use to describe what Russia is now? Is it a strategic rival or the new old enemy?
Definitely not a partner. We see from the Russian doctrines that they consider us an adversary. But I mean, back in 97, we adopted a joint NATO-Russia document called the Founding Act. In that Founding Act, we stated that we do not consider each other adversaries, and we will not use force against each other. But we have now seen in Ukraine that Russia is in a blatant breach of all these fundamental principles. So I think for the foreseeable future, we will have to engage with Russia from a position of strength and unity.
And NATO is discussing right now what to do in concrete means. Are you in favor of deploying combat troops, substantial troops in countries like Poland or the 3 Baltic states?
We have made one thing clear right from the outset, that we stick to the NATO-Russia Founding Act from 1997. And we hope Russia will also fulfill its commitments within that Founding Act. Having said that, I have no doubt that we need more visible presence all over NATO territory, including on the territory of our eastern allies. But whatever we do, it will be in compliance with the NATO-Russia Founding Act.
Though Russia herself has annulled this Founding Act of 97.
Not formally, but you're right, in reality, Russia has violated the fundamental principles of the NATO-Russia Founding Act, but that doesn't change our position. We are in favor of a rules-based international order and also a rules-based security order in the Euro-Atlantic area. So we stick to the principles of the NATO-Russia Founding Act, and the measures we are going to take will be in accordance with this Founding Act.
But NATO is looking, that's my impression, for a new long-term approach towards Russia. What do you personally recommend when you leave office in a few weeks' time? Should NATO adopt a strategy of containment?
I don't believe in containment. I have heard this Russian suspicion of being encircled by NATO allies. And that's really not the truth, it's not the reality, on the contrary. NATO does not constitute a threat against Russia. I have seen that Russia considers our open door policy and enlargement of NATO as a threat towards Russia. But it's not a threat towards Russia. It's based on the fundamental principle that each and every nation has the right to decide herself its security policies and its alliance affiliations. Even Russia has subscribed to that principle. And Russia has profited from enlargement of NATO and the European Union because thanks to those enlargements we have created a zone of stability, peace and prosperity in Eastern and Central Europe. And if you have a look at the trade figures and investment figures, economic figures in general, you will see that Russia has actually profited from that zone of stability and prosperity.
Western military experts are still struggling to find a word for what Russia is doing in Ukraine right now. There's talk of hybrid warfare or ambiguous warfare. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, it means a combination of traditional military measures and more covert military operations combined with sophisticated information and disinformation operations. And that's exactly what we have seen in Crimea, for instance. You saw these so-called green men without possibility to identify their nationality. So that was a kind of covert military operation in Crimea, which was supported by I would say a true propaganda war, and eventually what I would call a fake referendum, and eventually an illegal annexation of Crimea. That's a new type of warfare. We call it hybrid warfare because it's a combination of well-known and new methods.
My impression was that NATO was rather unprepared to this new type of warfare. How come?
Of course, some lessons have been learned. I have to confess it was a surprise to us that Russia would violate all the fundamental principles of the NATO-Russia founding documents, but also violate its international commitments and international law in general. We had expected Russia to respect those fundamental principles. And we have operated during the last more than 20 years under the assumption that Russia shared our view that we need a rules-based international order and security system. But we have to realize that they think differently, and now we have to adapt to that new situation.
If the Russian leadership decided to test NATO in the Baltic state, could they be defended under Article 5?
I can assure you that we will take all measures necessary to ensure effective defense of all allies. Article 5 in our treaty is essential. It states that an attack on one would be considered an attack on all. So if any potential aggressor were to attack a NATO ally, all other NATO allies would help that specific ally and provide effective defense and protection.
Finally, a brief look at the ongoing war in Syria and the onslaught of ISIS in Iraq and elsewhere. The Middle East, as we know it, seems to be falling apart. In how far does this affect NATO and the Western Alliance?
Potentially it can affect our alliance, in particular our ally Turkey. And you have seen us take the first steps. We have deployed Patriot missiles to Turkey to ensure effective defense of Turkey against potential missile attacks from Syria. And of course we follow the situation in the region closely with a particular view to ensure effective defense of our ally Turkey.
NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen, thank you very much for joining us at Deutsche Welle.
You're welcome. Thank you.